The German commanders had faced many enemies on the Eastern Front. They had crushed cities. They had broken armies. They had burned entire divisions to ash. But nothing prepared them for this man. Reports kept arriving from the front lines, and frantic, confused and impossible to believe. The same tank again. He survived another direct hit. Our Tigers are disappearing. At first, German intelligence dismissed it as fear, then as exaggeration, then as coincidence, until one brutal winter morning when 18 German tanks vanished in a single day. No airstrike, no ambush column, no artillery barrage. Just one commander. And that was the moment the Germans finally understood. They weren't fighting a man anymore. They were fighting a myth that refused to die. He did not arrive as a hero. No medals, no famous name, no noble background. He was born into cold soil and hunger, a land where survival came before honor. From his first days as a tank crewman, he learned one truth. Steel doesn't protect you, decisions do. While others relied on armor thickness and engine power, he studied terrain angles and enemy psychology. He memorized how German crews reacted under stress, how long they took to reload, how commanders panicked when hit from behind. Inside his tank, silence ruled. No shouting, no chaos, just calm orders, spoken softly even when shells slammed into steel. That calm would become his signature. His first confirmed kill came almost by accident. A German panzer rolled forward, confident, careless. The commander waited, not for permission, not for backup. He waited for certainty. One shot, clean, perfect. The panzer burned. Then another, and another. By the end of that week, his crew had destroyed more tanks than veterans twice his age. Still, no celebration followed. He simply cleaned the barrel, marked the hull, and prepared for tomorrow. Because tomorrow always came. German artillery found him first. A direct hit. The tank disappeared behind fire and smoke. German observers reported it destroyed. But when the smoke cleared, the tank moved. Scarred, burning paint, bent armor, still alive. That was the first time German radio operators used a new phrase. That tank is unkillable. Every engagement after that followed the same pattern. He was hit. He vanished. And then he returned. Always from a new angle. Always closer. He never rushed. He never chased. He let the Germans move first. He used forest edges for concealment, destroyed villages as kill zones, snow glare to blind optics, smoke not to hide but to confuse. Where others fired quickly, he fired once. Where others aimed center mass, he aimed for turret rings, ammunition racks, crew hatches. His tank looked ordinary. His tactics were not. German crews began recognizing his methods. When a panzer was hit from an impossible angle, they knew. When radio signals went silent, they knew. Some crews refused to advance after spotting his tank tracks. Others fired blindly into trees. A Tiger, commander reportedly said, "I would rather face aircraft than that man." The irony was brutal. The most feared tank crews in Europe were now afraid of one commander. The Germans planned carefully. 3 Tigers, 2 Panzer IVs, artillery support. A perfect trap. They waited for him. He arrived exactly where they predicted. And then he stopped. Minutes passed. Then silence. Suddenly, fire from the rear. 1 Tiger disabled, then another. By the time the Germans realized the trap had reversed, it was too late. He had used their own confidence against them. A shell finally penetrated his armor. Shrapnel tore through the turret. Blood filled the floor. His crew begged him to withdraw. He refused, bandaged his arm, adjusted the sight, and fired. 2 more tanks burned before nightfall. That night, German intelligence issued a direct order. Destroy this commander at any cost. Dawn broke under heavy fog. German forces advanced in force. Confident numbers would end the nightmare. They were wrong. He moved like a shadow. Each engagement lasted seconds. 1 shot, 1 kill. The fog became fire. By noon, 5 tanks destroyed. By afternoon, 12. By dusk, 18 burning wrecks littered the battlefield. German radio traffic collapsed into panic. Retreat orders overlapped. Units abandoned vehicles. That day became legend. They had better tanks, better optics, more experience. But they lacked one thing: adaptability. He didn't fight machines. He fought people, their habits, their fear, their hesitation. And that made all the difference. No one survives war unchanged. Each victory added weight. Each burning tank meant lives lost. Enemy lives, but lives nonetheless. He spoke less, smiled never. The unkillable commander carried his ghosts in silence. One day his tank didn't return. No wreckage found. No body recovered. Some say he was finally destroyed. Others say he walked away. But German records never confirmed his death. Only one note remained. Threat neutralized? Possibly. Possibly. After the destruction of 18 tanks in a single day, the German command finally stopped reacting. They began hunting. This was no longer a battlefield problem. It was a personal mission. Elite Tiger units were reassigned. Veteran commanders were pulled from other fronts. Air reconnaissance was ordered to focus on one sector only. Not cities. Not supply lines. One man. Maps were redrawn with circles around his last known positions. Radio operators were told to report any unusual movement, even a single tank track in snow. The Germans had learned something painful. If they let him choose the battlefield, they would lose. So they decided to choose it themselves. The Germans staged a retreat. Abandoned vehicles, burned supply trucks, a trail that screamed weakness. It was bait, carefully designed to trigger his instincts, and it worked. He studied the scene for a long time. Too quiet, too clean, but retreat or not, enemy armor still existed, and where armor existed, civilians suffered, so he advanced cautiously. What the Germans didn't know was this. He never followed a trail directly. He circled it. The ambush zone was perfect. Open ground. Limited cover. Pre-registered artillery coordinates. German gunners waited with fingers tight on triggers. The moment his tank entered the kill zone, the order was given. Shells rained down. Earth exploded. Fire swallowed steel. German officers smiled. Then the smoke cleared. The tank was still moving. Damaged. Slow. But alive. And worse, it wasn't alone. Two supporting tanks emerged from flanking positions the Germans never expected. The trap had failed. Again, German crews opened fire too fast. Too wildly. Shots missed. Barrels overheated. In contrast, his tank fired with discipline. One shot. One Tiger disabled. Another shot. Turret jammed. The psychological damage spread faster than the physical one. Radio messages overlapped. "He's behind us!" "No, left flank." "We're losing Tigers." They weren't losing tanks. They were losing control. During the chaos, a German panzer crew bailed out. Young soldiers, barely trained. They ran. His gunner waited for the order. It never came. He let them go. Because his war wasn't about killing men running away. It was about stopping machines that crushed everything in their path. That choice would haunt him later. Victory always came with a price. A loader killed by shrapnel. A driver burned but survived. A radio operator who stopped speaking altogether. Each loss chipped away at the myth. The tank still moved, but the crew was shrinking. And deep down the commander knew. No machine survives forever. German High Command issued a rare directive. Engage only if overwhelming force is present. Avoid lone contact at all costs. Think about that. An entire armored doctrine, rewritten because of one commander. But war doesn't wait, and neither did he. Darkness was supposed to protect the Germans. Instead, it became his ally. He cut engines. Waited. Listened. He could hear German tanks before seeing them. Engines whining, tracks grinding. When the first Tiger crossed his sights, he fired. The night lit up like daylight. Screams, fire, confusion. By dawn, the forest was a graveyard of steel. A lucky shot finally hit where armor was weakest. The explosion threw him against the turret wall. Blood poured from his head. His vision blurred. For the first time, fear crept in. Not fear of death. Fear of failing. He ordered withdrawal. The myth had learned its limit. German reports claim success. The unkillable commander is wounded. Enemy activity reduced. Celebrations were planned. Champagne opened. But war punishes confidence. He returned weeks later, slower, quieter, deadlier. Other commanders tried copying his tactics. They failed. Because they copied what he did and not why he did it. He understood timing, psychology, patience. Those things can't be taught quickly. They're earned in fire. The final battle wasn't dramatic. No massive charge, no heroic speech. Just fog and silence. A single German shell was fired. Then nothing. No confirmation, no wreckage. The battlefield swallowed the truth. After the war, archives were opened. German losses were verified. Tank numbers matched the legend. But his name? Missing. No photograph. No grave. No official death record. Just reports. And fear. History remembers generals. History remembers victories. But sometimes, history remembers fear. The Germans never proved they killed him. They only proved they survived long enough to stop looking. And somewhere, buried beneath frozen soil and burned steel, lies the truth. Some warriors don't die on the battlefield. They disappear and leave the enemy forever wondering, what if he had come back one more time? History remembers generals. History remembers victories. But sometimes, history remembers fear. The Germans never proved they killed him. They only proved they survived long enough to stop looking. And somewhere, buried beneath frozen soil and burned steel, lies the truth. Some warriors don't die on the battlefield. They disappear and leave the enemy forever wondering, what if he had come back one more time? After the final engagement, something strange happened. The Germans didn't celebrate. They waited. Days passed. Then weeks. No attacks. No ambushes. No burning wrecks appearing overnight. For any other enemy, silence meant victory. For him, silence felt wrong. German patrols reported intact villages that should have been destroyed. Supply convoys moved freely, but slowly, nervously. Every commander asked the same question. Is he gone or just watching? Stories crossed units, then divisions, then borders. Tank crews told new recruits, if you hear one shot, stop. If a tank survives artillery, retreat. If the radio goes quiet, pray. His legend became exaggerated, and as legends always do. Some said he never slept. Some said his tank was welded from captured German steel. Others swore he could predict enemy movement days in advance. The truth was simpler and more terrifying. He learned faster than anyone else. He didn't believe in heroics. He believed in outlasting. Where others sought glory, he sought survival. Where others chased kills, he chased control. He understood one brutal reality of armored warfare. The tank that fires first doesn't always win. The tank that fires last usually does. That patience turned him into something the Germans couldn't calculate. Years later, a German Tiger commander wrote in his diary, "We feared his tank more than air raids. Bombs end quickly." He stayed. Another officer admitted, "He made us doubt our machines." And once a soldier doubts his weapon, the war is already lost. Those weren't defeats on paper. They were defeats in morale. He never claimed victories as his own. Every kill was credited to the crew. The driver who could maneuver blind. The gunner who waited for certainty. The loader who worked until hands bled. He knew the truth. An unkillable commander is nothing without men who trust him. When those men fell, a piece of the legend fell with them. Propaganda needs faces. He avoided cameras, avoided interviews, avoided parades, not because he was humble, but because attention shortened lives. Fame paints targets. He preferred anonymity, and anonymity kept him alive longer than armor ever could. Front lines shifted. New commanders arrived. New weapons entered the field. The battlefield evolved. But whenever German armor hesitated, whenever a column slowed without reason, officers knew the thought that crossed every mind. What if he's here? Even absence became a weapon. When the guns finally fell silent, historians searched for him. They found wrecks. They found reports. They found burned Tigers counted and verified. But the man, no record, no medal ceremony, no demotion, no death notice. It was as if the war itself had erased him. Most likely, he survived. Not as a commander, not as a legend, as a man who had seen enough fire for a lifetime. He disappeared into civilian life, carrying memories heavier than any tank armor, because some soldiers don't want statues. They want silence. Modern warfare is faster, smarter, deadlier, but one lesson remains unchanged. Technology doesn't win wars alone. Minds do. He proved that training, patience, and psychological dominance could defeat superior machines. That lesson still echoes in modern battle doctrine. The Germans never confirmed his death. They only confirmed one thing. Whenever he fought, their losses increased, and their confidence collapsed. And that is why his story survived. Not because of numbers, not because of medals, but because fear remembers what history forgets. Long after his disappearance, German training manuals quietly changed. No public announcement, no explanation, but instructions were added. Never advance predictably. Avoid isolated engagements. Assume the enemy is watching, and even when unseen. These weren't lessons learned from a battle. They were lessons learned from him. Without firing a single shot, his presence had reshaped how the enemy thought. That is the rarest form of victory. Years later, farmers reported something strange. Plows striking buried steel, unmarked wrecks surfacing after spring thaws, shells frozen into the earth like fossils. Each wreck told the same story. Shots from impossible angles, precision hits, close-range finishes. Historians agreed on one thing. Whoever fought here understood tanks better than the men who built them. Many tried. Some had better tanks. Some had better numbers. Some had better technology. None matched the results. Because his success wasn't built on equipment. It was built on discipline under pressure. He never panicked, never rushed, never fought the last war. He adapted every single time. And adaptation is rare. Other commanders were brave. He was controlled. Bravery charges forward. Control waits. Bravery seeks victory. Control prevents defeat. That difference is why his kill count grew while others burned. He didn't win battles. He ended them. Surviving German veterans spoke carefully when asked. They never said his name. They described feelings instead. The moment radio chatter stopped, the dread of moving through fog, the fear of seeing a single destroyed tank ahead, one veteran said, "We didn't feel hunted. We felt measured, as if someone had already decided their fate." No photograph exists, no confirmed portrait. Some believe this was intentional. A face becomes human. A legend without a face becomes eternal. The enemy could imagine him anywhere. In any tank, on any road, behind any tree line. That uncertainty killed confidence faster than shells. He left no doctrine, no school, no memoir. But his influence lives in 3 unspoken rules still taught today. Never underestimate patience. Never trust silence. Never assume the enemy is finished. Those rules were paid for in steel and fire. Some historians believe he didn't disappear. They believe he was reassigned. To train others. To advise silently. To fight without recognition. If true, then the legend didn't end. It multiplied. Not because they confirmed his death, but because searching meant admitting fear. And fear, once acknowledged, spreads, so they buried the reports, classified the encounters, moved on. But memory doesn't follow orders. Every war leaves one question unanswered. For the Germans, it was this. How many more tanks would we have lost if he had fought one more day? No archive answers that. Only imagination does. Legends aren't made by living forever. They're made by changing how the enemy thinks. The Germans couldn't stop him with armor. They couldn't stop him with numbers. And even when the battlefield fell